Welcome to the Humanergy Leadership Podcast. My name is David Wheatley. We're here to talk leadership in small, bite-sized and practical chunks. Enjoy. Well, welcome to this week's episode. I want to cover something that I call the CEO 5. And this came from doing some work with a bunch of CEOs, and I was asking them what their responsibilities were, and they started talking, and I started taking some notes. And what we realized at the end of it was that there were really 5 major things that they had to focus on. So of those 5, let me just go through them, and then I'll tell you the complexity of this. Because the first one was to stabilize, develop, and align the leadership team. So set the expectations, provide structure, alignment, accountability, do some succession planning, have a well-structured meeting cadence, so the heartbeat of the organization. That was the first one. The second one was to coach people throughout the organization. So build capability and critical thinking, understand the capability and best fit in the current and the future organization, and set the example through self-development and balance and what you're doing in the workplace. The third one was to provide vision, direction, and structure for the organization. So that's strategic planning, decision-making, metrics and accountability, defining future success, organizational structure, policies and procedure framing. So the kind of the technical side of it, the structural side. The fourth one was to manage up. And as most CEOs have a boss somewhere, it tends to be shareholders, board, somewhere along the line, but it's to support and develop that board, those shareholders, wherever it may look like. So recruit, find, get the right people in those positions, grow them as board members, create a dashboard of metrics to provide a clear picture of current and comparative and forecasted data so that they have good visibility to the organization without being able to dig too deep in. And then the fifth one was the idea of managing out and the role of a CEO in building and maintaining external relationships. So seeking and developing growth opportunities based on their vision and commitment of the board, engage external stakeholders such as community leaders, donors, business leaders, etc., and to ensure the organization is seen as a value and respected in both geographic and industry groups. So these are the 5 things. So it's build your team, it's coach throughout the organization, provide the structure, manage up and manage out. What we also recognized was that each one of these takes 30% of your time to do well. So most of you will have done the math there and found out that that doesn't really work. So what we identified was the need for 2 of these to be on tick over any given time. That way you can actually focus the right attention on the other 3. So if all 5 are burning right now, then that probably means you're going to be doing some extra hours. But the idea is to get some of them so they're in a settled tick over mode. So where I take this analogy now is into the world of juggling. And many of you may be able to juggle 3 balls. It's relatively easy to teach somebody to juggle 3 things. I could probably teach you to juggle 3 things in about 20 minutes, half an hour. The challenge is going from juggling 3 things to juggling 4 things requires a rewiring. It's a different system, different format. And then going from 4 things to 5 things requires that again. And so you might come across a lot of people who can juggle 3 things. It's going to distinctly diminish when you get to 4, and then again, multiply, diminish to 5. And so this idea of if we're trying to juggle 5 things, as the CEO 5 is listed, that what's easier is that we juggle 3 things and we put the other 2 on the table. And we just learn to bring one in and put a ball down every so often. And so that works with this CEO 5. I've got 3 things in my rotation that I'm focused on. There's another 2 things that are sat at the table, but I have to make sure that I bring them in from time to time. So if I take this analogy a little bit further, the table is not level. So those 2 that are on the table are slowly rolling away from you. And if they get outside of arm's length, then what happens is they roll off the end of the table and you have to put everything down and go pick that one up. And the same applies for the CEO 5. If I don't pay attention with a regular cadence, then what happens is one of them falls off the table and becomes my everything. And I have to drop everything else to deal with that one that I've neglected for too long. What I've also found is that this applies everywhere. It's not just CEOs. You probably, whatever position you're in, have the same thing. You're building a team as a leader. You're coaching throughout the organization at different places outside of your world, potentially. You're providing some structure some organization, some thinking behind that. You're managing up and you're managing out in some way. And so those same 5 things apply to you. My call out question here is, which 2 do you have on tick over mode at the moment? And do you have the right cadence set to make sure that they don't get away from you and you have to drop everything to go pick them back up again? That's the CEO 5. Thanks for listening. That was the Humanergy Leadership Podcast. My name's David Wheatley. For further information about Humanergy, go to humanergy.com or check out our latest book, What Great Teams Do Great, from all good bookstores. Have a good one. Stay healthy.